Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Yeah.
So, the reason why, for listeners, this is Mr. Etsename. He's been a comrade of mine for about, let me say, 3, 4 years now. We've been in, like, I've had a lot of discussions, and I felt like today I'm going to talk to him about whatever it is we want to discuss. So, we start from academics. I observed that from the way that you talk, you did some part of your programs in England, and you always just oppose and you just oppose. I want to ask, like, what's the big difference, like the major difference you see in the education system there and here that you think is actually affect the way we, let me say, engage with our political atmosphere? Say maybe, I believe there's a way they teach them, there's a way freedom of speech is being taught over there in England compared to here, which makes people want to question. You see people over there, they question their professor, they question their lecturer, they ask questions from the lecturer. But here, we believe, oh, whatever the lecturer is giving me, I need to go cram it and and pour it back.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, you're right. I was privileged to get to do two degrees in England. I got a Master of Research in Art, Design, and Architecture, and then a PhD in Design for Social Innovation. Uh, Learning, although we are supposed to have benefited from their learning structure, but along the line, I think about 1973, we made a turnaround and started looking at the American education structure.
Okay.
Yes, but for the people in England, one of the cardinal points of learning in England is that they try insisting that there is sense making. Anything you want to do, you must be able to understand why you are doing it, and you have to be able to make sense of whatever knowledge you are getting.
Okay.
I went to the University of Lincoln. It's one of the universities in the world where their major disposition is that everybody can produce knowledge. They call it student producer. The students and the teachers come together to create knowledge together.
Okay.
That is a university policy.
Come together to create knowledge.
Yes. I think it is underpinned by a particular theory, the Lev Vygotsky's theory of social constructivism.
Okay.
Lev Vygotsky was a Russian sociologist.
Okay.
Yes, he believed that we all have some knowledge. Everyone has something they learn or they can contribute to creating knowledge. And so he feels as long as your social construction is different from mine, that your knowledge base and mine will not be the same. So we must come to a point where we can share or create knowledge together. That's why they believe their students are not just students who imbibe what the teacher
people to be told what to do.
God bless you, be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But rather they can meet at some point where the teacher and the learner all learn from each other or create knowledge together. And so that's my take. But here, you mentioned it. Here, the lecturer is all knowing and the student just takes whatever they give him. Even though the young man, I've once given this as an example, the color of the young man's pants that the teacher is teaching. The teacher does not know the color of the young man's pants because he wasn't there when the young man puts them on.
Yeah.
That's an example of the fact that the teacher is not all-knowing. He's not God. Yes. So, but until we change this mindset, there's a chance we will still be running around in a cycle.
Yes, I believe that ideology is also what is affecting the political landscape, even in church.
Yes.
Even in church, even in religious life. For example,
Yes.
You see people. I was reading today that a particular pastor was being interrogated in Abuja for fraud, related fraud, and we saw people. Church members will always be like, no, this is the devil and all of those things. You see the way we engage with our leaders. Oh, this leader is not. Well, if you criticize a particular leader, you will be told, oh, that man is big enough to give us. Why do you say that? So I think that's kind of even now in our workplace, whatever the CEO says, everybody must answer up and just follow. So I think the learning culture, the learning space, it affects everything. And it's making Nigerians not productive. People cannot actually come and say their mind, not because they are afraid, but I just believe that is how it has been structured from birth. You just say yes sir to your dad. It's mean engaging you, for example, as a result of what the community, Professor Fash and Co built around the whole thing that we do together. That's why I could engage you freely and not feel like, oh yes sir, yes sir. That's why.
You're right. But I don't think that is what our society has always been. I still strongly believe that children, women, unlike it's posited today, women, children, they had a stake. They learned. They had their various stages of evolution. That's why you had age grades in the African structure, the African social structure. You had age grades, and every age grade had a contribution to the society. Either they went for communal farming or they were the ones in charge of security and all of that. So that had always been there. It is the fact that the white man came and told us all we were doing is rubbish, and we accepted that's where we are right now. But some of us are beginning to sit down to revisit that. It's called indigenous knowledge resuscitation or creation. It's not original with us. It's a clarion call from around most non-Western hemispheric residents who are beginning to feel that their own knowledges, indigenous knowledges, must count. The Indians in America, yes, are some of the major proponents
they don't
of that.
deviate. If you watch Indians in America and UK, they don't deviate from their culture like that.
No, they did at some point. They are now getting back to it. If you read books by Denzin and Lincoln Smith, especially based on indigenous knowledge creation, they are beginning to recreate, revisit their old laws, that is LORE, their folk laws, and they are trying to turn them into information that can help a transgenerational appreciation of who they really are. A lot of them were forced into concentration camps or reservations, as they call them at one time, and they were force-fed with new knowledge, especially Western knowledge, which totally changed the way they saw their world. That is exactly the same thing in Africa, in Nigeria. But we are beginning to see that we too need to revisit what our tradition is. If you read Things Fall Apart, I'm sure you read Things Fall Apart. Obiorika, I want to believe it was Obiorika who talked about the clan, who is supposed to be the leader. The Igbos had this concept that a leader was a servant and his business was to share the commonwealth. Yes. So the argument in Things Fall Apart was, in the book Things Fall Apart, was that who will be the best person to share? Is it the oldest son or the youngest son? The argument is, if it is the oldest son, he will share it as unequitable as possible because he knows he will be the first to pick.
Yes.
So if he shares one portion bigger than the others, he will pick that first. But if the last child, knowing that he's the last person, he's going to be the last person to pick, is made the leader, because the leader is the one who shares the commonwealth, he will make it as equitable as possible. So if you bring this to modern day politics in Nigeria, if I have my way, leaders in Nigeria won't be from the major tribes anymore. They'll be from the minority tribes, because they'll be forced to share the Commonwealth as equal as possible. In 1977, if you go and check the records, the signature song for the World Jamboree hosted in Cherry Hills, Plateau State, the World Boy Scout Jamboree,
Wow.
was not any of the major tribes. It was Efik, that is one of the minority tribes, because at that time, Nigerians were still trying to do things the right way. But now, the only people who can be in contention, who can be seen in leadership positions, are either Igbos, Hausa Fulani, or Yorubas. And that is not acceptable.
Yes.
That's why we're in the mess we are in right now. Because at the end of the day, there will always be this my constituency backing. My people backing. It transcends into all spheres of our society. It is in education now. People, schools have become regional schools, especially the universities have become regional universities, getting only indigenous vice chancellors and co.
Yes.
The church too, they've all turned into tribal conclaves where churches are predominantly Igbos, Yorubas, or Hausas. And I think this is unacceptable if we are looking towards progressing in this part of the world.
Totally. I was talking to somebody one day, and he was telling me that we were discussing palm oil. Actually, I love anything around agriculture. I do a little bit of pig farming, and I love agriculture because I just believe it's. My dad is a farmer, and he was able to train about 5 of us to university, and he was not doing it on a commercial level. And one thing just spiked in me that if he had the resources to do it on a bigger scale, if this man can really train us to school, pay our fees with this, I mean, there's something here, there's value here that would create. That was when I was even very, very young then. I was not even this knowledgeable to know those things. So we're having discussion around palm oil. And I was saying, okay, the whole thing that they sold to us that palm oil is not good, vegetable oil is good. And I was like, okay, this whites came and they told us that everything we are doing is bad, just like you said. And I was like, okay, if they did that, it's been lots of years now. Why are we not breaking away from that neo-colonialism? Why are we not breaking away from it?
The reason is not far-fetched. The reason is still with the style of education we are giving our children.
And now we are the one that decide the education system.
We are still not the ones deciding the education system.
Wow.
That's why I want to bring into mention this personality, Professor Paulo Freire. Professor Paulo Freire is the author of many books, but he also conceived a style of learning or learning and teaching that he called the critical dialogic, the art of teaching young people to be very critical of their learning processes and environments. That's when he suffered around his family suffered around the world recessions. That's around 1928-29. They all suffered. They lost their homes. I think he was living in Sao Paulo or so, and they had to relocate back to the village. The problem was that the system had collapsed. A lot of people committed suicide about that time. So he made a promise that when he gets back to school, he was going to find a way of making his people learn better than they were doing. So he evolved a concept where young people are meant to critique or challenge or criticize whatever learning. They are meant to think critically in whatever learning endeavors they found themselves. Naturally, the powers that be won't like that. So when his Ph.D. thesis was out and he started trying to implement it, he was thrown into jail. He was in jail because the government felt that he was inciting the people. So, but the international community cried out and they insisted he be released. So he was released on the condition that he leaves the country. So he ended up in Chile from Brazil.
Wow.
and then ended up, after Chile, he went to the Vatican. I think he became the head of the education branch in the Vatican. Yes. And the whole idea was that if a young person is made to critically analyze or digest what he or query what he or she is learning, then the learning will have value for
the person.
For the person. So just like you were not trained to be a farmer.
Yes.
But you learned along the line because you felt that was what you needed. So I think that's where we need to get to. We might need to give our learners more room to learn what they want to learn. Yeah,
to go in search of knowledge, not we feeding them knowledge.
Yes. Right? We might need to give them the basics. We owe them that, the basics. But after that, they are expected to fashion. No child is too young to fashion out his learning direction or regime. So that they can become farmers. You read statistics,
yes,
but ended up becoming a farmer, and you are adding value to the system.
Yes.
So if every child sits down and searches for their calling and gets to identify their calling, there's a chance there will be more value added to the system.
Yes, that is when curiosity is kind of appreciated. When it's kind of appreciated, I think I agree with that. I'm also thinking of the fact that as a nation, for example, just like you said, everybody has responsibility. But I think one of the things that's failing us is that our religious leaders are sold out. I believe they are completely sold out.
I beg to disagree. I don't think they've sold out. I think they are beneficiaries of this dystopia we found ourselves. Because an average pastor in Nigeria now is richer than all members of his congregation. It just suggests that somewhere along the line, he is a beneficiary of this malaise. So if you say they have sold out, it means they probably are playing out a storyline written by someone else.
Yeah.
In my own case, I believe they authored this scenario. They authored it because they are the exact beneficiaries of this. And we, the led, are the ones who are suffering. The average, I understand in Nigeria, there are pastors who have 4 jets. Do you know the implication of having 1 jet? Come to think of having 4. Yes. In the world, the whole world, how many preachers outside Nigeria have 4 jets? Okay? So I don't think
the American style of religion.
I don't think they are playing a script written by someone else or one other client. I want to believe they authored this. Yes. If you get to read a book by Harold Robbins, Spellbinder, it gives a picture of what this is. Forgive my use of this. It talks about Jesus for love, Jesus for money, Jesus for power. That the spellbinding matrix starts with a pastor encouraging his members to love one another. But instead of it being love, as in agape love, helping each other, his own is love by sleeping with as many of them. That's why you have all this. They believe love is that love should be the amorous one, where the pastor sleeps with all the members, and it has become a major scandal. And then from there, it now moves to Jesus for money. They believe you must give, and you can bet there is this battle online over tithing and yes. And then the next one, the third level, is Jesus for power, which some of our pastors have gotten to now. The moment they have enough money, they fund politicians. Most people think it's the politicians that fund our pastors.
Religions, yeah.
Yes, it's not true. Wow. It is the pastors, because they have a lot of untaxed cash, a lot of cash at their disposal. So what do? They fund the politicians so that the politicians can actually support their disposition, their market, nobody sees it this way, but that's what it is.
I do not.
That's
I don't
the
see
reality.
That. I think it's the politician funding them.
How much does how many politicians have jets? How many politicians have money minus the security votes the governors have? Which other politicians have money that is unaudited?
Untaxed.
Yes, untaxed. Yes. So they have to put this money somewhere. It's either they put it in business or they put it in politics. They've discovered politics is one of the major things that brings in money. It protects their income. The politicians, when they get into office, protects their income. So that's why they are putting it there. So a lot of politicians are sponsoring, a lot of preachers, pastors are sponsoring politicians.
Interesting. Because recently, I was out when Peter B was talking about turning night vigils into night shifts. I don't know if you heard about those or that thing. A lot of people got angry.
He faced a lot of barrage.
A lot of criticism from even big pastors.
Yes, he faced a lot of barrage. Yes, that's the truth. That's the truth. I'm sorry, there is no religion or denomination that is exempted.
Yes.
They are all culpable.
Yes.
They are all culpable, from both the traditional religion to the Christian religion and the Muslim religion in Nigeria. Yes. They are all culpable.
I honestly believe
they have their own constituencies and they are fanning the embers of this. And the victim is the common man.
Yes. I always tell my friend that when we go to church every Sunday, we go there to take our weekly dose of hope to keep our dose high. The Muslim will go on Friday. They also go swallow their own weekly dose of hope. Oh, don't worry, it's gonna get better. And then we say this kind of prayer that I don't still understand. No matter how bad the country is, you will prosper. Everybody shouts amen. And I always wonder, like, do you mean millions of people suffering and you are okay? Like, how will you think you will be okay if every other person is suffering? I don't think we always look at the ripple effects.
That is where I will say that is not original with them.
Okay.
They borrowed that. That is what they borrowed. It's not original with them. If you listen to most of the Christian songs and everything, it's always, you will be the hammer, not the nail.
Yes.
Onward, Christian soldiers fighting for the crown. In the name of Jesus, we shall conquer. Everything has been pushed towards believing, giving you hope that you will be the head.
Yes, but not the tail.
Yes. So if everybody in the congregation is the head, who becomes the tail? Who gets to clean the church? Who gets to serve the others?
Yes.
The truth is, that is one of the things that is not original with them, that they copied, that they have found to the stage where it has gotten now. The average person who goes to church has been fed, like you said, with this dose of I will make it.
Yeah, regardless of the economic policy.
Regardless of whether anything is getting done. Pastors have not encouraged anybody to farm. They have not encouraged anybody to go and study. All they think is they encourage you to bring a return. And this return, they've not told you where you should go and get it. They've not actually preached about morals anymore. It's been just shunned out of the...
It's not about financial security, how you should prosper, how you should go into the world and prosper. And let's look at this, like, for example, now, we have people boasting about building the church with the biggest capacity. Oh, our church has the biggest auditorium. And I was asking myself, I said, take, for example, these big denominations. They have enough fund to actually build an auditorium that is worth billions. Yes, and I put up the question to my friend. I say, look, if these people decide to say, oh, we're going to spend 1 billion, you're building this worth billions, so 1 billion. We're going to build a food storage in one of our locations, big food storage system. One of the research I'm doing in my niche is that got me to know that more than 40% of our agricultural produce
get wasted. Yeah, it's obvious. It's always been there. It's always been
the mango in Benue wasted.
The
Guava,
moment the season
tomatoes,
passes,
it's gone.
the price of potato in the season is 1x. By the time it's off season, it's 12x.
Yes.
And half of it got wasted along the line. But I think before we get to this, it's important we mention that this is actually not the aim of religion.
Okay.
The aim of religion was noble, was socialist.
All right. Can you talk about it?
Yes, I think it's important we mention that.
Yes.
You see, the king was God. They felt at some point they need to remove the king as God and put the king, the God, as one you can't see, so that every other person can have a stake.
Okay, the king was God.
Yes, if you check history, the king, the average king all over the world was God. He could decide whether you live or die.
And they could see.
And he was just, he will be the one who decided what justice will be. But with time, this evolution came. And if you read the Bible carefully, although the Bible too has its challenges, but if you read the Bible carefully, it tried making everyone equal in the sight of God and man,
yes,
which is what the proponents of the Magna Carta preaches, that every man is equal in the sight of God. Okay? So, the original idea about religion was socialist underpin, meaning it was collectivist inclined. We work together, we do. That's if you read the Bible in Antioch, they all worked together. They all did things together.
That's why they said bring the tithe so that we eat it.
No, that is wrong. It wasn't the tithe.
Wow.
In Antioch, they weren't talking about tithes. They weren't even talking about offering. It was you have what you have, you bring it and we all share it. The tithe, I don't want to dwell in the business of the tithe, but the tithe, in the tithe, if you read the Bible too, it talked about you taking that thing, a percent of what the fruits of your labor, agricultural labor, you take it to a place where God will show you, and then you will enjoy yourself with your friends and family.
With it.
Yes. He said, you will even drink fermented wine. That means you will groove about it. And then in the third year, you take a percent of that and you give it to these people who have no inheritance. At that time, the people who didn't have inheritance were the Levites.
Yes.
And then orphans, widows.
They don't work.
No, they didn't have inheritance. Meaning they didn't have their own land that they can till and do this. So most of them ended up as priests in the temple. So, but if you look at that carefully, they were all collectivist ideologies. It is at variance. It's totally at variance with what is preached today. What is preached today is individualism.
Yes.
You will be the hammer, not the nail. You will be the head, not the tail. You see, they are not talking about collectives now. They are talking about you as a person. So this is a capitalist
engineer type of religion.
Yes, that is meant to make you struggle to bring, but not to the commonwealth. They deceive you that is the commonwealth, but it's not.
Yes.
It is given to a new God. This new God is the pastor who takes it and presides on it or prevails on it and does anything he wants with it. So we used to have a king as God. And then along the line, the likes of Jesus came and that king became invisible. He became he said, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am. Meaning he was saying he brought power to the people. Yes. But that power again, in the name of Jesus, has been taken away by some of these pastors. Now they are now the God again. Yes. Because now we worship the God of this, the God of that. Unlike, just like in the time of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. We have gone back to that stage. So we really are not Christians anymore, because Christianity is not about the God of Abraham. The Christianity is the God of ourselves, that wherever we gather collectively, God is there.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is my take on that.
I understand. Yes, that's very clear. And to be precise, what I was saying then was that if you can build an auditorium worth billions,
Mm.
you could create farms.
Yeah, no, but God, the God of today won't allow that because it is not to his benefit. He does not want you liberated. The moment, see, why do most people go to church? They go to church because they are hungry.
They are
Because they
problems.
look for that. Yeah, they are looking for solutions to the problems they have. So if you create a society where problems like the Lord's Prayer says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Meaning when here becomes like heaven. If you go to some of these developed economies, you will feel you are in heaven. I've traveled around, I've been to a lot of countries. I've been to Rome. I went to Rome, I went to Tivoli. If you go to Rome, you see people on this thing. Everybody is free. The average meal you need, you are guaranteed of that.
You will eat.
Yes. So if you are helping your neighbor, you are not helping him because you want something from your neighbor. You are helping him because you want to help your neighbor. I've once lived with an atheist for about a year. I lived with an atheist. He's a German, he's from Bavaria. A German from Bavaria. We lived together, and I want to say, despite the fact that he used to ridicule my faith, yes, but I trusted him more than I would trust an average pastor in Nigeria today. Yes, if he wants to use the laundry, he asks me whether I have whites because he wants to wash whites. If he wants to wash color, he will tell me. If he cooks his meal, sometimes funny looking meals, he asks me whether I want to eat. Yes, we shared the same flat for more than a year, and we lived in harmony. I can't say the same thing for non-atheists that are from Nigeria I lived with.
Yes.
At one time, I kicked out one of my flatmates because I was the original owner of the flat. Yes. So I think our understanding of the world, of our worldview, let me say, is what we determine whether we will progress. That's where this thinking, these thought processes are, this money let us invest it in
agriculture.
Yes, profitable. No, it might not just be profitable societally. Let's invest it in something that will benefit everyone. That thought process can only come when the people who are in charge are not thinking like God.
Honestly. Because when we were wrapping up the whole thing, he was giving me a story that his church, somebody came, a pastor came and was like, okay, let's do this. We're going to build. He said their church can take about 1,000 people, and they are not even feeling the. And he said, the person just, I have a vision, and the vision is that I have to build. So he said the guy came and started building. So they're contributing. Everybody started contributing. He said when it goes to about a particular level, then they transfer the pastor. And then the new person came, and then the project was just abandoned. And he was not thinking like, we literally spent millions. He said about 500 million has been spent on that project. He's not thinking like that's money that is never coming back. That's money that we could have invested in something that could generate recurring profit for us. And he now said during COVID, this was now opened his eyes that look at this auditorium that we've built now.
And they are useless.
Nobody could go there.
I think you started this conversation by talking about the power of education.
Yes.
Most of those people, some of them even have PhDs, but they were not educated. Yes. Nelson Mandela said, education is the weapon that liberates a man. Those people who donated so much money to build a cathedral, spent $500 million to build a cathedral, and many of their members were still sleeping, hungry. Yes, were not educated. Let us extrapolate this to a country where the average person there is educated, like Israel.
Yeah.
If you read this book by Moshe Dayan, the autobiography of Moshe Dayan, it talks about the state of Israel. They started by buying lands. When they came back, I think 1948, when they came back to Israel, they started by buying lands. The Arabs could only sell bad lands to them. They bought bad lands and they started camps. They call them kibbutz, farmsteads, where you go to the university, you do military training, and you live. There are three things. You live together, both young men and women live together in these farmsteads. They go school, university, and they do military training. So they are into agriculture, military training, and education, all put together. So that's why a very small nation like Israel was attacked by 5 powerful nations and they were not vanquished. They actually defeated all their enemies and commandeered or annexed a lot of lands from places like, I think, Syria, Jordan, and about Israel, Egypt. Yes, but the secret was the average man there was very enlightened
and informed.
There was even, if you read the history, there was even a time when they had to challenge the rabbinical councils, that is the religious arm, where they said women must do things this way, and they said no. In the case we have found now, women and men are the same. They must learn. They have some of the best pilots the world know, female pilots the world know.
Wow.
Their Mossad, that's their intelligence arm, is about the best in the world. It's populated by both men and women. The reason is because they are educated. So here, you see a professor is a pastor, and then he calls his students and tells them, come, let me pray for you so that you will pass your exams. That has happened to me personally. I'm not talking from hearsay.
Wow.
Yes. So is that professor actually educated in the sense of what we are talking about? Education is not about getting degrees. Education is about acquiring knowledge that helps your well-being, that makes you human, that makes you able to thrive in your community and help your community grow, get liberated.
Yes.
So in that sense, in that definition, there are quite a lot of us who are not educated. You check the pastors, the average pastor is an supposed educated person.
I think we should talk about how you get educated. Personally, I don't just take things from people. Whatever you say, I allow you talk, I listen to you, but I always go back to like research and ask questions.
You process it.
Yes,
that's what it is.
My dad called me questionnaire.
Yes, you process it. I got a PhD. I got one of my students who got a first class. I think the first to get a first class in graphics.
Wow. Yeah, I know it's very difficult to get a first class in design and all that.
The first to get a first class in graphics. I had to sit down and study him. In class, when you're teaching, if 20 questions are asked in the course of the lecture, 10 will be asked by him. He will ask you, sir, did you say it is like this? It means he is processing. I read education at one point. I have NCE, so I am very education. I am an education. I will say I am a teacher.
Sure.
Yes, as a teacher, when you look at a student who keeps asking you questions, it's not because he doesn't know alone. He's trying to verify. He's trying to, as the information is coming, he's processing and verifying. In education, they say it is what you spell out or you say that you can confirm that you know. So that is actually the process the person is undergoing. That you tell me, jump up 5 times. I will say, if I'm jumping up 5 times, sir, what height should I jump? It means I am getting specific. It means I know. I am trying to ensure I know what exactly.
Do I have to jump 5 times to achieve the same result, or we can even reduce it?
Yes. So a lot of us have gotten degrees, a lot of degrees, but in the real world, we haven't really met the Nelson Mandela's concept of what education should do to us. Has education empowered us? No. Nelson Mandela says education is the weapon of liberating man. That's, if you check, is a major statement made, is a global quotation. Yes. His assertion is that education is the weapon you need to make your society better. Yes. If you look at our roads, our engineers saying that they are imputing their own, they are making their own contribution. If you look at our farms of food security, yes, will you say our professors of Agric are delivering? If you look at our polity, yes, will you say our professors of political science are delivering? So when you sit down, you check carefully. Education is when the things you were trained to do, if they are manifesting in your society. Yes. I remember architects in Nottingham. They complained that that they were losing their heritage. Old architects gathered to say, enough is enough. You can't be destroying all our architectural heritage, the ones of renown. Emperor Hadrian of Rome, I cannot quote the exact time he was in existence, but he sat down and said, I want to contribute to architecture. I want to be able to make the world learn about architecture. While I was a student in England, I traveled to Rome, not Rome particularly, to a village near Rome where this emperor built a lot of replicas. The place is called Tivoli. His own particular place is called Hadrian's Villa. He named it after his concubine. Yeah. Yes. Any architectural edifice in the world of renown, that is from the dolmens of the Gauls to the obelisks of the Egyptians, you will find a replica there built by the emperor. And today, we students of the world, we go there as a mecca to go and see those things. Okay?
Yeah. Do you think the art, the architecture of a particular environment speaks a lot about how
the culture, the
personality, the critical thinking spirit of the people?
Yes. Like if you look at us now, we don't have we used to have an architectural culture. We don't anymore.
We used to?
Yes.
Before colonialism?
Yes. Yes. If you go to the Museum of Traditional Architecture in Jos, there's a museum for architecture. You will see our relics, the architecture of our time, and they all had meaning. Yeah. When we used mud, yes, they didn't make it as bricks. It's the Western man that brought bricks, made bricks. What they did were balls. There was a way they used mortar as
they made balls.
Clay.
Yes.
Laterite mixed with straw and shaped in a particular shape.
It was not
rectangular. And then they will use it to build. When you build those structures, they were very solid. If you go to Ouagadougou, I've not been to Ouagadougou, but the first library built there in Ouagadougou, I think today's Burkina Faso. So people travel there to see the library and the university. I think during Mansa Musa or Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta was a historian, but during Mansa Musa, a university was built there. Yes.
So Mansa Musa, we have university in Africa.
Yes. So yes, the first university was in Africa, Luxor, Egypt. Okay. So when they built these things, if you go there, there were benefits for building like that. One of the benefits was that those things had thermocular sensations. We didn't need fans in our rooms those days because of the nature of the laterite used. Okay? But now we don't have that anymore. We only have them in a museum. Okay? Even the structure of the building was designed to meet the work profile of the person. If you are a weaver, you will make sure the window is facing they say the sun rises from the east and
Yes.
set in the west.
Yes.
So what will the person do? He will make sure the window of where he or she is weaving is facing the west, so that the last rays of the sun
Can still-
will still go into the place. So
We're scientific.
yes, so
We're scientific.
architecture in Africa was well thought out, was premeditated, were designally. Unlike now. Now,
boxes,
can you
boxes
look at this
everywhere.
building now?
It looks lifeless.
Yes, you see, so these are the things. So we Africans, we had a history, we had knowledge. Our knowledge was impeccable.
I was talking to a guy, and he said one of the things he's trying to teach his son is that their history did not start from slave trade. That is not slave trade is just a pinch. There's something before it.
Yes,
There's a lot of things before
there
it.
has always been slaves. The slave trade they are talking about is the trans-Saharan or trans-Arabian slave trade. Those ones happened at a particular time. Long before then, there were slaves.
Even within ourselves,
Yes, if you read the Bible too, slaves were everywhere in the world.
You fight a war,
yes,
you take them.
Yes. Everywhere there were slaves in the world. There have always been slaves. And there are still slaves with us now. If you check the definition of slavery, we still have slaves.
Interesting that we still have slaves.
Yes, come. The people who go to these churches, are they not slaves? No, come. If you say you're Lord and Master and you have no opinion, your only thing is to contribute. What were slaves doing that time? That was what slaves were doing. The average adherent of religion today, whether Islam, Christianity, or traditionalism, the average personality is a slave, because he doesn't seem to have an opinion. He doesn't seem to contribute, intellectually to the commonwealth of that knowledge base or that movement. His own is to just receive. And what does he receive? Instructions. And this instruction is to do. Who is a slave?
No
That's what a
asked.
slave is. Yes.
No questions asked
Yes.
at all.
Slavery is not just about a loss of right to work or not to work. Slavery is also about your thought processes, a loss of right to think for yourself.
What governs it?
Yes.
What governs it?
Yes, that's slavery.
Interesting. What governs your thought actually determines a lot of things. Because the moment your thought process will change, everything will follow suit. Everything. That's what I said.
And it's the major underpin to development. Without that, there cannot be development. You see the American child saying, I can't. He's telling the father, no, I won't. So what does the father need to do? The father needs to convince him why he should. Even the law will not allow the father punish him for not obeying. So the father has to convince him to obey, to do what he has said. Convincing means telling him this is what you stand to gain if you do this. That's why they are progressive and we are not.
Interesting. Okay, as we wrap up, sir, I think from all of the things we've discussed today, you just give us, okay, what will you say to a young 20-year-old? What will you say?
I will tell them to read. They should open their mind. They should read. And then they should develop. I can't remember the exact philosopher, but he said, before you did, the first thing that came was the first concept man had was of doubt. Doubt. That means, is this true? So that he should go around verifying things. Every young man now should first of all imbibe the culture of doubt. I think Bertrand Russell, not so sure, but the pessimists, people who say no, who skeptics, people who always question whatever is happening, they actually are the people who will help our world. So I will recommend that the average young person today should, even if your daddy tells you good morning, check whether it's morning. So when you develop the culture of verifying, our world will become better than it is right now, because it will help you know whether you are being fed the right thing or the wrong thing. That is in all spheres of the grain, from education to politics to religion to family.
Yes,
Yes,
marriage,
if you learn to ask, is this right? Is this it? You will get it. And two, that they should develop the culture of shame. They should get back to being ashamed of wrong things. Because right now, one of the major things missing is that we have killed the sense of shame. There is no shame. And a society without shame is doomed. That's why you can kill your neighbor. The barbarians in history, the Visigoths, is it the Goths or the Visigoths? They used to kill their neighbors and use the head to drink their skull to drink. Yes. Yes, they had no shame. They were barbaric. That's what they were called. The white man called us primitive. It's a wrong assumption. It's a wrong assertion. But we need to show that we are not primitive. And the first thing is that we must have shame. I should be ashamed of doing the wrong thing. If I've done something wrong, I should be ashamed.
Honestly.
It's a major failing of man in this part of the world.
Honestly, I believe so. Thank you very much, sir, for doing this.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself. I have never done this in a while. So honestly, especially when you believe something is being audited, you are supposed to be measured with what you say. But somehow you have made me not say measured things. So I appreciate that.
Honestly, I like that's why I do this. That's why I don't send scripts. I don't send questions.
I appreciate.
I honestly believe when we are just having discussions, we say more real things, more helpful things. When we are not being said that, oh, somebody's going to rate us, somebody's going to give us a pass mark, somebody's going to say, did I answer the question correctly or not? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye, everybody.